Broadcasting from Manhattan Beach and the World Wide Web, you're listening to CHSR HealthyLife.net.
As a service to our listeners, this program is for general information and entertainment purposes only. CHSR HealthyLife.net does not recommend, endorse, or object to the views, products, or topics expressed or discussed by show hosts or their guests. We suggest you always consult with your own personal, medical, financial, or legal advisor.
Welcome, everybody, to the Nourish Your Soul show for the month of June. Welcome, welcome. I am Sevante, and I am so glad to have you here. Wow, what a show we had last month with Krishna Das. Thank you so much for your incredible feedback. I think you felt it. I know I was impactfully changed irrevocably. The conversations we had with KD were just stellar, and it was a real honor. So not to say that this interview this month with our guest, and I'll be introducing him in a moment, Jake Sasseville, will be equally compelling, but I will say that Krishna Das is such an icon, and it was an honor. And if you did miss that interview, please visit the Nourish Your Soul show YouTube channel, and we have the replay for you in perpetuity, so you'll be good to go. We talked a lot about Nourish Your Soul with KD, and in my journey that I have walked, I have always looked for ways to nourish your soul. And I know that that comes in many different formats. And part of the creation of the teachings I have been doing with writing words and foods and putting them together and creating these magical experiences where you can understand food in a deeper way is to have these experiences where you can truly embody that, where you can fully understand it, not just from a sense of teaching it, but to actually integrate it. And one of the things that I had been wanting to do, and it had been on the bucket list for a very long time, is to create an annual retreat where I can gather people from all over the world. And these decks from the Food Healing Oracle deck are now in almost 30 countries, and gather everyone together where we can come together as one in person, read with each other, heal with each other, and be nourished. So in order to do that, I needed to find the right place. And oh, did I do that. And here today is the CEO of this place, and he's going to tell you all about it, and I will be gushing all about it too. But more so, I wanted you to meet the man behind the magic. Jake Sasseville is here with us, CEO of Imiloa Institute. Welcome, Jake. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Sevante. I'm excited too, and as I was listening to that gorgeous intro, I was reminded that I did miss the Krishna Das interview, and what a heck of a thing to follow Krishna Das. What a special dude. I used to run around a bit with him and Ram Dass when they were on Maui together. Or Ram Dass was on Maui. Krishna Das would come in for the retreats, and they were always very kind in inviting me to hang out because I was living on Maui at the time. So it brought back so many wonderful memories, and I would love to hear that conversation. So thanks for inviting me to follow Krishna Das. That's pretty cool.
Hello. I thought you would like that. It's a little bit of, I think we had a little of a connection with this India and just feeling the essence of Imiloa Institute. I just knew this whole Bhakti, Hindu, take it slow and take it present vibe was there. But you'll enjoy that interview, and I'm not going to give it away, but I want you to hear a great little story of my connection to KD and Ram Dass, which is in that interview. So yes, go check out that link at YouTube channel, Nourish Your Soul. So here we are talking about you. Yes, a big follow-up, and you are big presence and a big energy. So I thought, oh, he can handle that because you are in your own way becoming a wonderful icon for so many people in the spiritual wellness fields. And interestingly, reading your bio, we also come from the world of Hollywood and all that comes with it. So now I get your tenacity and your drive and your chutzpah. So I think we have a lot in common. But for those of you who don't know you, and yes, we're going to go into everything that we can talk about why I am now in doing 2 back-to-back retreats with you, what makes it so special. But I'd love to catch them up on where you came prior to that to get to where you are now. Take it away.
Yeah, I love origin stories. I love origin stories, Sevante. I love that that's where you start, because I think that when we tell a story, the Sufis say that when prayer stops working, it's time to tell a story. Mm-hmm. And so when you ask someone their origin story and where they came from and how the building blocks kind of came into play, it's a powerful stand. It's a powerful stake in the sand to be able to make. So I appreciate that. So many ways that I could start out that. And, I think that the contrast is often really important, both in storytelling and in life. Contrast gets you clear on what you don't want, so you can get clear on what you do want. That which is unwanted can get you clear on what it is you do want. What's that?
You could say that 10 times over to people until they really get that, because with change comes great acceleration into the new you, right?
Totally. And sometimes it can be painful, but that's usually just the ego, I have found, hanging on for dear life. And that's all very good. That's all part of the journey for many of us. And it continues to be part of the journey for me. The ego hangs on for lesser and lesser times most of the time. So I would say my origin story really starts in a small town in Maine. I grew up, as I have said and shared, because I like the visual of it, on the wrong side of the tracks in a housing development that was made for lower income folks. And both my parents lived in this housing development despite being divorced. And so that's kind of where I grew up. I grew up with a father that worked hard, but didn't really know what he didn't know. And so it kind of was a bit of a glass ceiling in his own spiritual development, because he just didn't know what he didn't know. And now in my 30s, I have a tremendous amount of compassion for that. But he sure did work hard, Sevante, and he sent us to a private school. It was a Catholic school, which is an interesting decision. But it was private because he wanted us to have a good education. And in reality, it was probably the best for me, because I was kind of all over the place as a kid. With a bunch of letters after my name and diagnoses, but luckily never medicated, which I feel really grateful for, even though I was a bit out of control. But really, it was just my light trying to shine through, and I didn't know how to in this small mill town in Maine.
But was
my
that
mom
a
was a substitute.
I'm sorry, was that a religious background? You're saying he sent you to Catholic school, like you were practicing a religion versus spirituality, which I'm sure came later. I'm sure that's part of the story.
Yeah, spirituality came later. I would say, practicing Catholic, whatever that meant. It wasn't like dogmatic, but it certainly was. It was an identity. I think that people, even who practice spirituality, yoga or whatever it is, it's still an identity. We're still looking to identify with a culture, and one hopefully that supports us instead of takes away from. But I think for my parents, it was like a Catholic identity. That's what they grew up with. They thought that would be the best for us. The internet wasn't what it was yet. And so, and despite that, I will say that my dad often, really supported my own independent investigation of truth, which was an important thing as a kid, even though I was being kind of indoctrinated in this Catholic upbringing. And so, I grew up in this small mill town, always wanting to get out, and eventually I did when I was 15. I moved to France as an exchange student by myself and raised the money myself. At the time, my brother had cancer. He had leukemia. He ended up dying from leukemia when I was 17. And so I just wanted to get the hell out, to be honest with you, when I was in my teens.
My daughter did that, by the way. Sorry, just to throw in there. She went
to an exchange?
She did at 16. She was the youngest in her group and went to Sweden. Yeah, 30 years after I did it.
It's so rare for kids from the U.S., at least it was, to go abroad. Like, it's not rare for Europeans to come here to the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember how odd it was. Was it odd for your daughter as well?
I don't think so.
In her school
no,
was it
actually,
odd
we were in New Mexico, and I think everyone wanted to get out of New Mexico. It was just, Albuquerque's a small area, and she's only heard of her mother who traveled everywhere around the world, and I think she had the bite of travel. Now she lives in Australia. I mean, she did, so it wasn't odd, actually. I think they were all looking to find more than what was there. More than what was Breaking Bad, right? Back in those days.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so that gave me a different worldview. I grew up in a small town, like I said, in Maine, and so to go from that to like traveling Western France, it was great. It was a great experience. And so that kind of, the building blocks started, right? My brother was sick. My dad had Parkinson's. My mom's an alcoholic. So I'm just looking for answers to some of life's biggest questions. That's where things really started.
Got it. Wow. Well, I think that everyone has that. That's a good origin story. I'm sorry for what you have endured. I think we're like these wounded healers. We've all been through the stuff that now we can then utilize as that power-packed medicine to help others. So God bless that. And now flash forward, because you moved into entertainment, and obviously you had a very successful entertainment career for people who knew you, or, you can maybe touch on that. But I really resonated, and I had not known that. And I've known you a minute, and not, maybe a minute or a few seconds versus other people, but I've, reading your bio and your entertainment background, because I came from Hollywood as well. I worked for Hollywood's top people. Brandon Tartikoff back in the day. I mean, I can go on, but this is your interview. So tell us a little bit about that, and then the progression into Imiloa, where you are now.
Well, I do love that people don't know that about me. And it's not that I'm particularly secretive until they research a bit, because I don't lead with it anymore. I used to lead with it like it was my badge of honor and calling card. Cause I did some pretty interesting things and overcame a lot. But as I've grown up, I've just realized it's maybe interesting, but I don't identify it with it much at all. But again, all it did was it established building blocks that would eventually lead to Imiloa, which, I believe when we listen to life's whisper, our greatest pain in life can turn into our purpose, but we have to be listening to the whisper. Mm-hmm. And so what the TV shows did, so essentially my brother died when I was 17, and I came up with this dream. I had been on local access TV in Maine when I was 15, 16, 17. My brother dies when I'm 17, and I realized, I had idolized people like Oprah and Conan O'Brien and David Letterman and Rosie O'Donnell. I just liked the idea of a talk show. I liked the idea of talking to people. I wanted to innovate it. I wanted to be there. I wanted to have the access. I thought it would maybe solve a bit of my pain that I was feeling with the loss of my brother and my dad going down this journey with Parkinson's. So I thought, well, that could take away some of the, maybe that could take away some of the pain. Making people happy and joyful and whatever it is. So I came up with this dream of becoming the youngest host in late night TV history. And I just pursued it. And at 21, the show launched February 14, 2008, after Jimmy Kimmel on ABC stations all around the country. 50 million homes. It was called The Edge with Jake Sasseville. And it was a reality talk show. It was showing how a 21-year-old gets his own show as the show is in progress. So I was doing interviews with famous folks and not so famous folks, but also the cameras were turned behind the scenes in terms of how does a 21-year-old get his own show? How am I doing $1 million deals with Ford and Pringles? How am I getting the distribution? How am I on tour with Kanye West promoting the show that's not even yet launched? All these things when I'm like 20, 21 years old. And, it was entertaining, but it was also truthful. What I was really going after, when I really think about it, Sevante, and I didn't realize it at the time, I wanted to share the truth, even when it wasn't sexy or cute or good to look at, which is why authenticity has become so important to me in the world of transformational leadership.
Huge.
When you talk about wounded healers earlier, we have people show up at Imiloa that are, can I be irreverent on this show? I can be irreverent, right? Or do we need to abide by radio guidelines?
No, I think you're good to go on this show. Mm-hmm.
So if I say batshit crazy, that's okay, right?
Yeah, you're good to go on that one. Yep.
Okay, good. So
you should hear some of the things Katie said.
Okay, good. I just wanted to respect whatever platform.
No, thank you for asking.
Yeah, of course. So I think that, some people show up to Imiloa, some hosts show up to Imiloa batshit crazy. And I enjoy authenticity. So if you're authentic about how inauthentic you are, to me, that's the wounded healer that recognizes that they themselves are also, that the wounded healer who is healing other people recognizes that they themselves are wounded, as opposed to people who are inauthentic about how inauthentic they are. So I can deal with crazy as long as you're authentic with how nuts you might be or how, special you might be. It's people who are pretending like everything's okay. It's people who are there's just a level of inauthenticity. And I've met a lot of folks who have applied to come to Imiloa in the early days. We didn't have a sniff test for us to realize who was really aligned and who wasn't. And so I saw the whole spectrum. To host.
Okay.
It was really difficult. And so you go back early years before, or whatever it was, 15 years before, I'm just blasting through entertainment with the truth. Like I'm showing myself at my worst, right? Because it's a reality show as well as a talk show. So fast forward 15 years into the world of transformation with Imiloa, and, I have an allergy to inauthenticity. And so now we're moving in the right direction, I think.
Yeah, I love that.
What's that? You like that?
I do love that. I do too. I have an absolute disregard for it. I would love someone to be transparent in their truth, sharing what's going on, not stuffing it in or just ghosting. Just really say what's on your mind, you're in your heart, so you can come out the other side. I mean, there's such an elevation when you can do that process, and it's not easy. But as you kind of get your life lessons, it gets easier. And we will probably, in the next few minutes that we have, explain to people what Imiloa is, because we're mentioning Imiloa. I've raved about Imiloa, but we haven't really actually said what it is. But we will get to that. How about now? Why don't we just get to that? So to flash forward for you, Jake, everything you've done has brought you to this moment. How many years ago? When did it first begin, and what is it?
So Imiloa began 5 years ago today.
Oh, you're kidding. Wow. Congratulations.
This is Imiloa's 5th birthday.
Energy. Love it.
Yeah. Well done on that.
Yeah.
You sussed that one out. You intuited that. So it started 5 years ago, and, I was living in Hawaii at the time, and I had gotten this big old house in Maui after losing everything in Hurricane Sandy. So Hurricane Sandy washed away my house in 2012 in New York City. I lived on a tiny island called Broad Channel in New York City, right off the A train, and my house got washed into Jamaica Bay, right by JFK Airport. And so I became homeless for a while, but not really, because I crashed with friends, but everything was in disarray thanks to Sandy. And then I ended up, all my money kind of dried up, TV contracts dried up. I went through this very dark night of the soul, and I asked my grandma back in Maine if I could move into her basement. And so I went from flying high in New York City to moving into Grandma's basement when I was 27. I said, Grandma, I'll just be there for a month. Of course, I had no idea that I would be there, Sevante, for 2 years. And so I was there in that basement for 2 years. I started and failed at 5 businesses, and the 6th one worked. It was a podcast, ironically. And Grandma didn't have internet in 2013, so I had to go to the Dunkin' Donuts parking lot to do my podcast, to steal their internet from Dunkin' Donuts.
Holy shit. Wow.
I know. It's so much.
For those of you who don't think that you can't go from your lowest to your highest, listen to everything Jake's saying, and I can relate to that because I went from Hurricane Ian of losing everything to, here we are.
Not only that, but we met on like the week after that I think that the hurricane had hit, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you're like, the internet may not be best because we're still out from the hurricane. I said, what are you doing in this meeting? She says, well, I booked a meeting, so we're going to have the meeting. I was like, wow, this person's on a whole different level. That was your authentic, to me, that was like so authentic about what you were going through. And then it was just easy from there. Once you're authentic, people don't realize that. when you're authentic, you can blast through anything. You can get through anything. It's when you're hiding. Like, we're only as sick as our secrets. And usually whatever we're hiding is what's running the whole show, is what I learned from Werner Erhard. But anyways, so the house gets, so I'm in grandma's basement. And I start this podcast. I end up earning $10,000 a month from the podcast because so many people are listening after 3 months. So it was just a joy to do this from a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot. And then I moved to Maui. I said, where do I want to be in the world? I don't want to be in New York or LA. I was listening to what my soul needed to be nourished, and that I don't want to be in like big cities. I wanted to be somewhere else. My friend reminded me how good I felt on Maui, and so I moved to Maui. I had an Airbnb cottage in the backyard. I didn't know it at the time, but I was becoming Oprah's neighbor. Oprah was my neighbor in Maui, which I figured out on the first day after moving there. So I went from grandma's basement to Oprah's neighbor. My whole life was transforming, and I just started to listen. I think that the best thing we can do to nourish our soul and nourish ourselves is listen to life's whisper. And by listening to life's whisper for several years on Maui, I realized that human beings want to feel at home in their transformation. People were coming to my house to feel at home. And because they felt at home, they were willing to look at what they could do to transform their life, whatever it was. I had Rwandan genocide survivors writing their memoirs. I had cancer victims, stage 4 cancer folks who were coming to heal on all of them were staying at my house. And so I realized that human beings want to feel at home in their transformation. And that's why I created Imiloa.
Oh my goodness. All right. We're going to take a break. When we come back, more with Jake Sasseville. Am I saying it correctly? Jake the Great. Wow. There are so many Jake-isms in there. I just have to go back and listen to this myself. All right. You're listening to the Nourish Your Soul show. We'll be back in a moment.
What if your food can talk? What would it say? Receive Mother Nature's healing wisdom for emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual wellness at centerforintuitivefoodtherapy.com. Feed your chakras, eat in unison with nature's 5 elements, and now receive a complimentary energy activation. To begin your journey, visit centerforintuitivefoodtherapy.com/activation. You'll never look at food the same way again. Take your mind, body, and spirit to the next level of healing support with me at deniseflood.com. Together, we'll create your self-care toolbox using a layered wellness approach to deepen your relationship with soul. My unique program, Change Your Frequency, Change Your Life, is designed to lift your vibrational presence to create heaven on earth. Join the light bearers at deniseflood.com and access your free resources. DNA are unique building blocks of life, and now there's something to nutritionally support you. Happy DNA Candy. At happydnacandy.com, you'll find unique, delicious, organic, GMO-free candy made directly from plant DNA. Nutrients so immediately absorbable, you will feel the difference fast. The right nutritional support helps energy, stamina, and aging. What are you waiting for? Go to happydnacandy.com now. You are nature. You are earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. Spend 5 months mastering all elements in a sacred online space and open up your wellness to new levels, facilitated by Sevante, founder of the Center for Intuitive Food Therapy, and her gifted colleagues. You'll enjoy teachings and healings in multiple modalities for infinite wellness. Limited spots available and filling now, this August through December at foodhealingdeck.com.
You know, when my grandson takes a long car trip, he listens to audiobooks. A long drive seems faster, and sometimes he doesn't want to get out of the car because the book isn't finished. With over 100,000 books, Audible.com is one of the best places to get audiobooks. You can listen to a bestseller anytime, anywhere. Audible.com, your destination for the widest selection of audiobooks. Join millions of listeners. Just go to the Audible.com on HealthyLife.net's advertiser page and click.
Where positive people and radio unite. HealthyLife.net.
Welcome back to the Nourish Your Soul show. I hope we have whet your appetite with Imiloa. Imiloa, what's Imiloa? And we are here with the CEO. If you're just tuning in, this is Jake Sasseville here with me, and we are talking about how to nourish your soul. And he has found a way for not only himself and others to be nourished, but literally for hosts, anybody going through anything. And I'm going to let Jake explain it best what Imiloa is all about and why I have created the Nourish Your Soul retreats there for both 2024 and 25. If you didn't hear it at the commercial break, listen to it on the next one. But we have commercials rolling and running, so you join us and hop on over to Costa Rica. So Jake, tell us more. I'm just enthralled with what we're hearing. I love this because when I was down in Imiloa, I didn't really get to have, everyone was trying to get to you and talk to you, but now I get this hour with you. So tell everybody what Imiloa is. You had this vision from Maui and you were already creating this sacred space that people were gravitating to. And then somehow you took this great leap of faith and you went into the jungle.
Yeah, I went to the jungle. That should be the title. Moving to the jungle 5 years ago today. Yeah, the thing is that I think that oftentimes when we get these whispers, when we get inspirations, we double and triple and quadruple think ourselves out of it. I was in such a beautiful environment in Maui that I just listened to the whisper. And so I just started talking to everybody about this vision that I was having. It wasn't something that I downloaded. It wasn't woo-woo. It was just I wanted to create something for human beings. I wanted to create a space where human beings awaken their consciousness. I thought that, an institute would be interesting. I think I thought it was a retreat center back then. And so I believe, Sevante, that our word creates our world. Our word creates our world. So I talked incessantly about what became known as Imiloa for years. And finally, about 2 years in, someone pointed at me, an old Hawaiian woman, and she said, what you speak of is Imiloa. An old native Hawaiian woman actually named Imiloa what it became. And Imiloa is a Hawaiian word that literally means exploration driven by a sense of wonder and imagination. Exploration driven by a sense of wonder. Isn't that good?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
We were on our way. And so Imiloa, and I was like, well, Imiloa Retreat Center doesn't make sense. We'll call it an institute. So I just listened and I just created, and I ended up partnering with a business partner who ended up raising all the money for Imiloa, the first Imiloa. He was inspired by the vision and he posted on Facebook. He had a very tapped in network, posted on Facebook that he had this, partner that had this vision. And would anybody like to partner? And we raised $500,000 overnight. And then another $1 million, and then another $1 million. 5 Facebook posts raised millions of dollars for what became Imiloa. And 35 people from 19 countries around the world became our initial core investors, literally within a matter of weeks. I had spent years talking about it, but within a matter of weeks we were funded. And that's the real important thing about being patient with the process. Trusting that if God, I call it God, whatever you call it, spirit, God either blesses it or blocks it. And when God blocks it, I try not to resist, because what you resist persists. I don't want to create more of that which is unwanted. I want to create less of it. So it's, right?
Heck yeah. So if I can just bridge a gap there by asking you the question, from when you manifested this incredible experience with the partner in the raising of the funds, and to back up from your experience in Maui, where in there did you start to have this connection to the divine, to the spirit, to the more spiritual part of you? Somewhere along the way, you were fed breadcrumbs that had some awakening for you to get to where you are going to attract that vibration. So hit it.
There's 2 particular moments that set me on a path. The first was when I was 13 and I found out about the Baha'i faith. The Baha'i faith is a world religion. It believes in the oneness of humanity, the oneness of God, and the oneness of religion. All religions are one, all people are one, and the God that we think we're talking to is one. Or the God that everybody has their own God, but all God is, one. That's the tenets of the Baha'i faith. So I investigated the Baha'i faith for 9 years before declaring as a Baha'i at 21. So that's the first thing. That was the first cornerstone. I would say, I had a mentor when I was 19 in London. Her name was Susie Pearl. She used to be a publicist for Michael Jackson and Madonna and all this. She then went to all things spiritual. And so I would go and live with her for extended periods, and she would teach me everything that she knew. That included remote viewing, which is the technique that the CIA uses, and remote influencing, all the way to spiritual principles and meditations and all of this. So that was the second sort of foray into learning about the spiritual world. And then I would say at 27, when I ended up in the basement, I got into a 12-step program, 12-step recovery program for my addictions. And doing those 12 steps put me into conscious contact with God, Creator, because I recognized that I could no longer exert my own self-will in order to create. I could create instead from a place of surrender, not hustle. And I got that from my 12-step program. So I would say those three things are what brought together the spiritual experience initially. And then life since then has just been about exploring it.
Wow. Thanks for bringing up Michael Jackson. I don't know if you knew my background. See, I don't usually bring all that stuff up either.
You cooked for him, right?
I did. And it's interesting. I really haven't really led with any of that stuff for years until I met Miss Kim. And she's like, you should really be talking more about where you started, because not everyone has those opportunities to be cooking for Yogi Bhajan, and Michael Jackson and many, 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 many others. And I said, you know what? It was so long ago, I didn't even really take it to as like, you're right, that is actually part of my origin story. But when you're around entertainment and high-profile people, you don't really, and you, I'm sure, can attest to that, Jake, you don't really see it as like name dropping. It's just part of what you do, who you've been with, and you don't really.
Oh, I was a fan. Sevante. I was name dropping Sevante. I'll be very honest. I was totally tickled by the fact that I was in some of those circles and trying like hell to get in others. Like it was not normal to me. This 21-year-old going to parties with Jimmy Kimmel.
I'm sure.
Now.
Back then, of course, same for me, same, right? Okay. Oh my God, story. But now, like, I don't really talk about it, because when you talk about it, it sounds like, oh my God, you did what? And it's just kind of like, that's just part of my evolution, and yours, of course, too. But look at the people who you're tracking to Imiloa, I add. There's some powerhouses showing up there. I'm loving it. So somehow we're part of that vortex that attracts that sort of frequency. So yay to us.
Well, and by the way, you being willing to talk about cooking for Michael Jackson, and perhaps someone listening is in the entertainment business, in a talk show or whatever, and maybe there's an opening there for them to recognize that there is something more for them. So I actually don't think talking about it now is as much about revving the ego as it used to be for me. It sounds like for you. But if someone is a chef or a high-profile celebrity now, but they are curious about how to nourish their soul, they're curious about, even what more meaning around food or the spiritual aspects of life, by you talking about your story, they tune into you, and then they have a place to go to learn more. So I actually think that's the power these days of talking about whatever our stories were. It actually serves as an attractor to people who may be wanting to transform their lives.
Oh my goodness. Well, that couldn't be better said. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to tell you how you can transform your life at Imiloa Institute. We'll be back in a moment.
Take your mind, body, and spirit to the next level of healing support with me at DeniseFlood.com. Together, we'll create your self-care toolbox using a layered wellness approach to deepen your relationship with soul. My unique program, Change Your Frequency, Change Your Life, is designed to lift your vibrational presence to create heaven on earth. Join the light bearers at DeniseFlood.com and access your free resources. DNA are unique building blocks of life, and now there's something to nutritionally support you. Happy DNA Candy. At HappyDNACandy.com, you'll find unique, delicious, organic, GMO-free candy made directly from plant DNA. Nutrients so immediately absorbable, you will feel the difference fast. The right nutritional support helps energy, stamina, and aging. What are you waiting for? Go to HappyDNACandy.com now. You are nature. You are earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. Spend 5 months mastering all elements in a sacred online space and open up your wellness to new levels, facilitated by Sevante, founder of the Center for Intuitive Food Therapy, and her gifted colleagues. You'll enjoy teachings and healings in multiple modalities for infinite wellness. Limited spots available and filling now, this August through December, at foodhealingdeck.com. What if your food can talk? What would it say? Receive Mother Nature's healing wisdom for emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual wellness at centerforintuitivefoodtherapy.com. Feed your chakras, eat in unison with nature's 5 elements, and now receive a complimentary energy activation. To begin your journey, visit centerforintuitivefoodtherapy.com/activation. You'll never look at food the same way again.
Shh! Over here. Here's a secret for a virus-free computer. ESET. They've been a pioneer in the antivirus industry for over 25 years. 25 years of innovative, top-rated antivirus protection. ESET's award-winning security solutions provide a safe online experience for over 100 million home and business computer owners. They are so affordable, fast, and simple to use. So be gone, you blue screen of death. ESET's on my computer. If it's not on yours, visit HealthyLife.net's advertiser page and click on ESET now.
Radio your way. HealthyLife.net.
Welcome back to the Nourish Your Soul Show. So you've been hearing a lot about spirituality and walking your path and being authentic and finding your vision and making it happen. That's what Jake did, and that's what I've done along the way and the different things that I've done. And now we're taking it on the road because this Nourish Your Soul retreat that really is the essence of my brand. This is the name of this show. It's the name of what I want everybody to do, is how to learn to nourish your soul emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And why not do it in the jungles of Costa Rica? So tell us about the Institute and why Costa Rica, of all places, if you had your choice.
So the vision of Imiloa was to build an intercontinental institute for the education and advancement of human beings. That was the original vision that I was leading with. And so the vision was to build one of these, Sevante, on every continent on the planet. We tried to get it done in Hawaii for North America. We couldn't get it done in Maui because of the regulations, and Costa Rica was more friendly to us. So Costa Rica became our first flagship location. That's very simply why we did it in Costa Rica. And so that's the vision. That's where we're headed. And, you know, it was the first property I saw when I came and I toured different properties in Costa Rica. It's at the top of a mountain at the end of the road, out on the edge of a cliff. We didn't cut a tree for the development of the property. Each home, it's not even homes, but like each accommodation is its own separate structure. So as opposed to going to a hotel where you're just in one big building, you get to really retreat at home in your transformation. So the origin ideas, the origin vision of Imiloa really manifested in what we found. You have everything from mountain views to jungle views to Pacific Ocean views. And there's really something for everybody. It really is a bit of a playground. It's a sober campus. So that's a stand that we take. So that way people can really transform, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
And, you know, we just started building out our core. I didn't really know what we were getting into. I had no clue what we were getting into when I started it. I just was following the vision. And I'm not one of these woo-woo people that just like I said earlier, gets downloads and starts following things onto a path. Like I'm a business, like I'm a New Yorker. I lived in New York for 10 years. Like I know business.
Yeah,
so for me just to be like all of a sudden in the middle of a jungle was terrifying.
Right.
The first few months were really hard. I didn't speak any Spanish. So there was a lot that was going against Imiloa.
It's more than kumbaya, Jake. It's more than kumbaya for you.
It's more than kumbaya.
Yeah. And the rest is history. 5 years today. And 5 is trust. 5 is change. So really, have you been able to, trust now your gut in all things, or are there certain parts to you that still feels like you're emerging and learning to trust those parts of you that maybe from childhood or things? I'm just curious because I know you go on sojourns and God, you're around so many incredible healers. Is there a part of you that's really anchored in that piece of trust now that you've done this, or is there new layers of learning?
So there's yes and yes. And so what I mean by that specifically is, let's say I'm being gaslit in a business relationship. Let's just say, right? Someone's saying something that I know not to be true, but they're saying it as fact and kind of suggesting that I should go along with it. Whereas 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, Sevante, it might have taken me weeks or months to recognize what was happening and to like redirect. Now it's taking hours or days, right? So there's a trust there. It's still taking a little bit because we're still dealing with the influences of others. We're all manipulating each other. That's why I have no problem with sales. I love sales. People are like, that's manipulative to like sales. Well, we're all doing it. So I'd rather know like what's going on and do it for someone's highest and best and be willing to let it go. Like salespeople who aren't willing to let it go, there's no real surrender there. But anyways, I digress. The point is that I think it's the patterns that I see or that I identify. I'm doing it in hours or days now, sometimes weeks if I'm particularly smitten with something or someone, in the gaslighting example, for example. But also my energy field isn't really attracting folks like that as much anymore either. So I trust that. And we went through a very profound change last year with Imiloa, where we exited many of the investors that helped start Imiloa, that initially invested. And that took a lot of trust because that could have gone off a cliff many times. It nearly did. COVID, we were the only place to stay open and not fire a soul during COVID. We took on a lot of debt. The balance sheet from a business perspective was not good for Imiloa last year, and we had to restructure things. And it came very close, literally within days of the end of last year, that we would have, essentially fallen off a fiscal cliff. And we were able to put together the deal that we needed to put together. But all through that, I just want to say on the point of trust and trusting and listening, throughout the entire year, I practiced both getting up and taking action on the vision and surrendering to what life would ultimately reveal in front of me on the path. Every day I had to do that because it was tough. There were 35 investors, varying degrees of support and not. And people admittedly were frustrated. It was a long haul during COVID financially for investors to keep Imiloa going. And I'm very grateful to each one of them for their support. And I had to detach. I had to surrender and trust living life on life's terms, letting Imiloa be whatever it was meant to be. I couldn't hold on anymore. So it's interesting that we move into our 5th year with that now behind us. Obviously, we were successful in that pursuit.
Yes.
And now you're telling me it's about trust. And so last year I really got some training on and really refined my training on trusting and letting go.
Well, and interesting, if that was year 4 is family and foundation, right? So you're establishing this new foundation. You're really determining your family. You're getting sort of that anchor point of what and who lights you up like a Christmas tree and allows you to thrive so you can do that for others. So interesting watching that go.
That's very interesting. I really appreciate the feedback and insights on this.
Yeah, and I don't sit and do numerology all day long, but what I do in my healings, I love numerology because it does provide a little bit of a roadmap. I don't sit and read everything Edgar Casey talks about, but I do know that it is always so right on point about where we are in that evolution. And whether you follow the tarot and the major arcana and you know, life path number, they always are showing what's happening on our hero's journey. I mean, it is a walk. We are going through it. Talk about dark night of the soul. If you haven't had one, lucky you, but I think that is also a blessing at some point when you had them. Totally. Even though I've had them, you've had them, we've all had them. Some of us haven't yet, but when you do, it's really that wake-up call of like, what are you doing here and what matters most? And that is when you can step into that full expression of freedom. And that's what I also think is what I'm telling people why they should come to my retreats and come to Imiloa, is because it is such a release, an expression of freedom. So I know we're running out of time on this third segment, but we are going to take a break, and then we're going to just let Jake share everything we can about Imiloa in this last segment. So stick around. We'll be back in a moment.
DNA are unique building blocks of life, and now there's something to nutritionally support you. Happy DNA Candy. At happydnacandy.com, you'll find unique, delicious, organic, GMO-free candy made directly from plant DNA. Nutrients so immediately absorbable, you will feel the difference fast. The right nutritional support helps energy, stamina, and aging. What are you waiting for? Go to happydnacandy.com now. You are nature. You are earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. Spend 5 months mastering all elements in a sacred online space and open up your wellness to new levels, facilitated by Sevante, founder of the Center for Intuitive Food Therapy, and her gifted colleagues. You'll enjoy teachings and healings in multiple modalities for infinite wellness. Limited spots available and filling now, this August through December, at foodhealingdeck.com. What if your food can talk? What would it say? Receive Mother Nature's healing wisdom for emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual wellness at centerforintuitivefoodtherapy.com. Feed your chakras, eat in unison with nature's 5 elements, and now receive a complimentary energy activation. To begin your journey, visit centerforintuitivefoodtherapy.com/activation. You'll never look at food the same way again. Take your mind, body, and spirit to the next level of healing support with me at deniseflood.com. Together, we'll create your self-care toolbox using a layered wellness approach to deepen your relationship with soul. My unique program, Change Your Frequency, Change Your Life, is designed to lift your vibrational presence to create heaven on earth. Join the light bearers at deniseflood.com and access your free resources.
Stuff. Where can I contain all of my stuff? How about this? The Container Store, the original storage and organization store. And I found their link on the healthylife.net advertiser page. They have containers for everything, including the kitchen, the bathroom, trash and recycling, traveling, spring cleaning, and dorm rooms. Just about everything you can think of to contain your stuff. The Container Store, right on the healthylife.net advertiser page.
Radio your way. healthylife.net.
Oh my goodness, I can talk to you all day long, Jake. This is such an honor. Thank you for being here and to sharing this. This is actually suddenly a big part of my world now, is to gather people from around the world and have them come and have an annual retreat with me and some of my co-facilitators and healers and experience what it is to live the vision you've created. So let's tell people about that, because there may be people listening who would like to bring their own communities, who want to host themselves. And there are some maybe listening who want to come on my retreats. I'd love that. I'd love for all of you, whether you come on mine or you host your own, come to Imiloa. So Jake, tell us more. We have 8 minutes.
Well, Sevante, you are such a great example for people who are listening, right? You have this experience, this breadth of experience. You have a tuned in, tapped on group of people that are curious for learning. My understanding is that you haven't done international retreats up to this point. Is that accurate?
No, that is accurate because of COVID. I had them booked. We were looking somewhere else. Yeah.
So it's just like you are the perfect example of people who might be listening who have this breadth of experience, mastery, people following them, and that want to deepen the relationship with those people. And so that really is where Imiloa comes in. So the first 2 years of Imiloa, I talked to 2,500 retreat hosts. We made a list of every retreat center in the world and every retreat host at every retreat center in the world. And we invited them into conversation with me. And I talked to 2,500 people, 13-hour days, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, every week without missing it for 2 years. And what I did was I mind mapped the emotional and psychological pain points of every retreat host that I talked to. It down to like the 2 or 3 that really drove the show for many people, which was lack of clarity, particularly around money, lack of support, and lack of marketing and sales support. But we figured out that we could help people market and sell if we just handled everything else. And so Imiloa is the solution to literally thousands of retreat hosts' pain points from around the world. So that's how Imiloa was developed. It wasn't just like a gee whiz, let's start a retreat center. It was methodical. It was data-based. It was certainly inspired. And so everything that you could think of is based on pain points that we heard. So why do we fly people in a private plane to Imiloa? Because a pain point was we don't like being put into a car for 5 hours after we've been on a plane for 8. So we put people on a 20-minute flight. Why do we include the food? Because people don't want to have to worry about hiring a chef and are they good enough? Our team happens to be a 5-star gourmet plant-based cuisine team.
Woo! Yes, it is.
And you love it. You love it.
Yeah, of course.
It was fun to watch you. It was fun to watch you experience Imiloa's food. So you have all these things. It's all inclusive. So you don't need to take out your credit card once you've decided to join us, either as a guest or even as a host. It's all inclusive. Nightly rate that just includes everything: the transportation, the private flight, the food, the concierge team, anything you need. We just try best we can to say yes to. I used an old rule from improvisational comedy in Chicago, which is in order to advance a scene, you say yes and. You never say no but. So customer service at Imiloa, really, no matter how much it costs, we just say yes, because the cost in the moment will equal out over the long term, is what I believe. And so then I just tell the team, say yes as much as you can. Like, literally don't say no. We had a couple, for example, who wanted to fly separate in the small planes because they had a young family of 5. We got her an extra plane. I mean, that's the level of commitment that we have. We didn't need an extra plane, but they wanted to fly separate. They wanted to be safe and prudent for their family. Whether or not I agreed or disagreed, I didn't care. We just wanted someone to be able to have what they're wanting. We had another woman who refused to fly in the small planes. She asked for an armored vehicle. She was a billionaire from Chicago. An armored vehicle with 2 female guards. These are extreme examples, Sevante, but I'm sharing them with you so that your listeners can know that we're just in the business of getting people what it is they're wanting, literally no matter what. Armored vehicles and female guards and all. So if people are listening and they like that kind of service, like, they're more than invited to come and host here. I would love that, of course.
And then, of course, people are saying, I don't have those standards or needs, per se, not so much standards, but needs. So, yeah, this might be something I would like to do. But those of you who are new to retreating, if that's a word, is to really look at a place where you are feeling safe, you are feeling nurtured, nourished for sure, and you have the team that understands all the cosmology of all the elements that are being put together and what happens in a retreat. That is so essential. And that's what I love about you, your staff, everybody. They get it. I think you might have known back in the day. I worked in event production for many years and in hotels, and they buy the people because they know they feel that essence of comfort. And that is what it is. In addition to all the amenities, of course, and all the cliffs and all the beautiful homes. That's all true. But they buy the people where they know they feel the vibe feels right. And that's what I feel so good about, bringing my retreats and my people to you.
I love it. I love that you feel that way. We base the whole process, Sevante, on attraction, not promotion. So we never try to make people feel like they need to host here. If they're curious, like if they're curious now, if they're listening, they can go to imiloainstitute.com/yes. And you'll be able to even acknowledge Sevante by saying you heard it here first. We'll give $1,000 off the contract to anybody who mentions Sevante in the form at imiloainstitute.com/yes, just for you and your people, because we love them. Yeah, if they want to. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So say that one more time. I want people to really hear that. You just gave people $1,000 off.
So if you're curious about booking a retreat and you'd like to share more about what you're up to so that we can have a conversation, you can go to Imiloa Institute, nourished.com/yes. And then when it asks you, how'd you find out about us? You can just, put Sevante in there. Mm-hmm. And then we'll give you $1,000 off your contract if you end up booking with us. We're happy to do that.
Excellent. Jake, thank you so much. I know for those of you who are listening, consider it. If you do want to consider one of the retreats that I am hosting personally, you can go to centerforintuitivefoodtherapy.com. We also go by SIFT. CIFTofficial.com. One of those ways will get you to these retreats, and we welcome you to experience Imiloa, experience what it feels like to nourish your soul, mind, body, spirit. Jake, any last words? We have like 30 seconds, and I know you have so much to say. Again, we might have to do this again sometime. Thank you for this, but take it away.
Thank you. I mean, you said at the beginning you were grateful to get some time with me. I feel equally grateful to have gotten time with you. There are, the authenticity that you operate your business in, your life in, it's, the brand, we admire it so much. And I'm so grateful to have a little bit of time to talk with you and share with your people. I have a feeling I'm going to love your people.
I think so too. All right. Well, we are done and complete here. Thank you for being here. And just to wrap up the wordings you've heard all this hour, if you feel and hear that whisper, join us at Imiloa Institute. God bless. We'll talk to you soon.